Hi, everyone, and welcome to another NCBA coffee break. I'm Nathan Willner with the National Creditors Bar Association, and today we're discussing key findings from the 2025 TransUnion Debt Collection Industry Report with a special focus on what the data means for creditors' rights law firms. Joining me is Manny Plasencia from TransUnion, who's head of third-party collections. Manny works closely with stakeholders across the collections ecosystem and has a unique perspective on the trends shaping the legal recovery channel. Manny, many thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Nathan. It's great to be here.
So let's get into it. There's a lot to talk about. So, at a high level, as you look at the report findings, what's happening in debt collection industry, and what should law firms specifically be paying attention to?
That's great. I think one of the biggest themes this year was growth. Like 64% of organizations reported increased account placements, but during the past 12 months, I think 75% expected placements to continue going forward. What that stands for, especially out for, is that what stands out, especially, is that law firms expecting that 75% to rise tells us that legal channels are poised to see great success, especially if they're poised to be able to take that volume. They'll be able to move deeper into the life cycle and even up to the delinquency cycle if they're poised to be able to do that. And that's a great position to be in 2026 if I was a law firm partner.
Yeah, so that certainly sounds, encouraging. How are law firms feeling about their own financial outlook?
According to the report, very positive. It was 83% of law firms that expected to be in a stronger financial position next year. That was one of the highest levels of optimism we're seeing across the industry. I think it was increased placements, better liquidity, and investments in operational efficiency that are contributing to that conference. But their key challenge now becomes execution. As volumes rise, firms need to make sure that their processes can scale efficiently.
Yeah, so let's shift to the consumer credit side for a moment. What are you seeing in the underlying credit environment that could affect future legal placements?
Um, we're continuing to see growth in charge-offs and delinquencies, and that's across all major credit products. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. Charge-off balances, from 19, they were 18.6 billion till second quarter of this year, or 25, they were 33.5 billion. At the ssame time, the number of accounts entering charge-off increased. It was from 5.4 billion to 8.3. For creditors or for creditor rights attorneys, that means more accounts are progressing deeper into the delinquency cycle and they're moving towards potential legal placement windows. We're also seeing elevated serious delinquency rates in categories that are central to many law firm portfolios, unsecured loans, bank cards, auto finance. The stress we're seeing is broad-based across the core consumer products.
Yeah, so one interesting finding in the report involves liquidity. Um, and again, we're all in this together. We're one big happy family in a certain way. But how are law firms performing compared to the traditional debt collection agency?
I'll be honest, it seems to be a good time to be a law firm. This was, again, one of the more notable findings. Specifically to law firms, 53% of law firms reported increased liquidity, while only 6% reported decreases. Compared to third-party collections, where 34% reported decreased liquidity, that's a significant variance.
Yeah.
Um, what that suggests is that the legal recovery strategies are providing stronger performance stability. In the current environment, while other organizations are probably facing different challenges, it appears law firms are navigating today's market conditions particularly well.
Yeah, so that's a really positive thing for law firms. Are there any shifts in the portfolio composition that law firms should be watching?
Absolutely. Credit cards continue to lead. They represent about 53% of placements. Unsecured installment loans come in at 48%, and auto portfolios are at 46%. I'd keep watching fintech. Fintech is the fastest growing sector across all of collections. I don't know if that's specific to law firms. What's particularly interesting is that medical debt placements are declining significantly um, uh, compared to prior years. The broader story here is that we're seeing a shift to more traditional, documentable, which turn into litigation-ready asset classes. For our law firm partners, that often means greater opportunities to leverage well-established legal recovery processes. I know from being in the first party, I might look or would be looking to accelerate my collections process if it's going to give me faster results by going through my legal partners, and especially if I could find asset-driven opportunities to do so.
Yeah. And I think also with the change in the statute of limitations, I think that cases are getting filed quicker because of that. So I think when people talk about trends that there's more lawsuits being filed, I think that that needs to be looked at. But again, that I'm going off on a tangent, but I really do think that's a big piece of this.
Agree.
So in that report, one of the things, and this is something that's really near and dear to my heart, is it discusses debt settlement trends.
Yeah, yeah.
And what did TransUnion find there?
It continues to increase. Settlement activity has been, year over year rising in settlement activity. I think 65% of law firms reported growth in debt settlement accounts. That creates both opportunities and challenges. Settlement activity affects, pre-suit strategies, litigation strategies, post-judgment recovery approaches. Firms should really be thinking carefully about how they structure workflows and client communications around these increasing settlement volumes and take advantage of it. If it's an
Yeah.
opportunity, you can just make sure it doesn't become a hindrance.
Right. And I 100%. And I think also it shows tangentially, it shows that increased communication between creditors' rights professionals and the consumer benefit all parties. They benefit the
Agreed.
consumer, they benefit the creditor, and really keeping people without, in their siloed that they can't speak to each other. It makes it very difficult to resolve these cases. So I think that
Absolutely.
that's a great number to see that, hey, when you speak to each other, maybe you can get something done. This kind of brings us to the next topic that is really any conference I go to, if the two letters AI are in the
Oh boy.
title, the room is packed. The room is packed. It doesn't make a difference if it's regarding a subject that the audience is interested in or not. People are just like a magnet. So technology remains a major topic throughout the industry. What did the report reveal about AI and technology adoption?
Yeah, I love what I call the two letters. And I mean AI, not the other bad ones. We've been like you said, you can't go anywhere without speaking about the adoption of AI. So it's obviously accelerating rapidly. In the report, you'll find that 93% are either adopting artificial intelligence or actively exploring its use. And only 7% are reporting having no plans to use AI whatsoever. What's interesting for law firms is adoption tends to be more cautious and thoughtful. Often trusted, often you seek third parties, trusted vendors that you've worked with, things like that, to be able to implement these things, especially at the law firm level. I think something that brethren in the bar learn in law school is, if you're a good lawyer, it doesn't mean you're always a good businessman. You're not always a good data person. Figure those things out with some trusted partners. And I think the industry's done a good job of doing so. The conversation here, though, isn't really about replacing attorneys. I hear that a lot. It's about workflow optimization. It's about better prioritization. It's about enhanced compliance consistency and helping professionals focus on higher valued work. I'm going to do the plug there for TU and say, I'd keep in mind as we're building these AI strategies, just like any other, the machine's only as good as what you're feeding it. The data that you provide these models is critical, especially keeping your human in the loop and being able to have these data points, whether you're deploying a large language model, RAG models for large data manipulation, whether you're looking at automated attendance, self-service, whatever you're trying to figure out in AI, I would urge you to really consider the data and the sanitation of that data and the process that you're going to use to be able to do so, not just to remain compliant, but to remain effective. Um, and we're also seeing technology investments increasing. They're driven by productivity and margin protection rather than in the past where we've really had to focus on compliance requirements alone.
Yeah, I mean, basically the way it's been described to me is that people plus AI are better than just people. So it's not replacing anybody. It's just making the work that you're doing faster,
Yeah.
easier, and it's giving you that addition. And then finally, any law firm that is like hesitant to use AI or they think they're not using AI, I'm telling you, they're using it. They just don't know. It's in there. It's in every single thing we do, isn't it?
Yeah, we went through that at eBay. We were, really concerned about all our information getting out there and being into AI models and stuff like that. And I just paused everybody and reminded everybody that we operate, there are companies out there and that literally, show people how to beat us, how to, get around our sales things. And, there's just a bunch of information already out there. There's no way that any human being today is going to avoid their data in any way, shape, or form being manipulated 100%. This can't
Yeah.
happen. And AI isn't the big Skynet. To me, at least, my opinion is it's not the big Skynet. Yeah, to your point, it's a production enhancement tool. And today we do not have robots sitting in the seats doing, what Tesla's trying to build. And I hope that, we do get robots at some point. I'd love to see it, but today, no, that's not happening.
Yeah.
I think what we do see in the report is that firms that are utilizing the use cases that firms, collections, or law firms are using to deploy AI is a mixed bag. And we're also seeing that 94% of those reported high satisfaction levels with what they're doing, whether it be internal or vendor based at this point. What I love about this report is that we have, this is the eighth rendition of the same. This year, 26 will be the eighth rendition of the same. So we have trended information, and I'm curious to see what that satisfaction level looks like in 3 years,
Yeah.
and what kind of impact it's having. I would caution, lastly, here on this topic, when we're looking for AI, we shouldn't be trying to create a strategy around the tool, nor should we be trying to impress our clients because we have AI strategies. We should be trying to solve a specific solution to develop a specific strategy and use AI as part of the tool development or toolbox. In doing so, can make you hyper efficient, hyper effective. You can be surprised what you can achieve by doing so, but I would again caution anyone deploying this into their strategies to consider the why and the who's, and keep them in the loop.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. So this is a great report, a lot of optimism, but there's obviously still challenges. What risks should law firms be focused on as they plan for the remaining of this year and the year ahead?
Yeah, I think there's, from the report, which is, by the way, very near and dear to my heart. This report represents a lot for TU. We're very grateful to be able to be the sole source of truth, as I like to call it, in our industry with this report. And while what is it they say about plagiarism is a compliment or something to that extent. I encourage everybody to really take this report for what it's worth. It's a tool. It's not meant to be a shelf item. It's meant to be utilized and help you leverage strategies compared to what your peers are doing and figure out what you want to do in the same. But the three risks that stand out, the biggest risks, anyways, for our law firms, first off would be cost control. I think it was 58% of law firms said that they at least are moderately concerned about managing costs. And in today's affordability environment and higher, everything costing more money, that doesn't change just because, we're filing lawsuits or trying to contact consumers. Second is staffing. 58% report hiring and talent acquisition remaining, extremely challenging. I really, really encourage our partners in both the collection agency and law firm environment to really look at BPO. That's been an increasing use case in our report. I think it was a 12% increase in use year over year. However, the collections industry tends to be a little reluctant because they tend to look at it or compare it specifically with offshoring. And there's several opportunities in BPOs to be able to supplement the staffing levels or create some type of stability in staffing levels to be able to meet your client commitments, especially in SLAs. And lastly, data security. Law firms are amongst the segment that are expressing the highest concern regarding protection of confidential information and cybersecurity risks, not just because, licenses and things are at stake, which is a bit higher stake than if you would for call it my collection agency or debt buyer partners, but also because there's so much more information. There's court cases, documents, there's so much more exposure in what you're doing, and there's just a level of seriousness that isn't applied prior to attorneys' involvement. But you take all of that together, and those challenges reinforce the important point of technology is no longer optional. Technology and data are both, operational leverage, but it's also mitigation risk tools. It's also how you avoid falling into the pitfalls of these three, if not more, situations that can get you in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, so I mean, I think one of the positive takeaways is that the challenges now are more in the operations as opposed to in the actual product, where there was concerns of
Yeah.
maybe the veracity of the documentation or those kinds of things. We've kind of moved away from that. Now it's sort of like how are we doing the work? So as we wrap up, and we're getting to the end of our cup of coffee, so to speak, what's the biggest takeaway, like creditors' rights lawyers, the NCBA members? Law firm leaders to really remember about this report.
Yeah, I guess my takeaway specifically for my law firm partners would be you're entering 2026 from a position of, relative strength. Placements are rising, liquidity is improving, and confidence is high. The firms that really distinguish themselves will be those that control costs, definitely modernizing workflows in an area that I would say has been cautious to adapt, investing strategically in technology and continuing to build strong compliance infrastructures. Most importantly, the report provides benchmarking data specific to law firms. It's not just about understanding industry trends, it's about comparing your firm's performance strategy and operational priorities against what your peers are doing. So please utilize the report to suit those needs.
Yeah, I mean, excellent insights, Manny. Thank you for joining us and helping us break down, these findings and what they mean specifically for a law firm that does this work, which is was not always easy to get that information. So this is a really valuable tool that I'm hoping all law firms use. And thank you for everyone who's watching. To learn more and access the full TransUnion Debt Collection Industry Report, stay connected with NCBA. Coffee Breaks will tell you how to get it. I'm Nathan Wilner. And thank you again, Manny, from TransUnion, for really giving us insights that might not find other places. So it was really valuable. Um,
My honor.
Once again, I'm Nathan Wilner, and thank you everyone for joining us today. And we'll see you next time on NCBA Coffee Break.